Welcome, everyone. Today is Saturday, July 18th. This is week 7, day 4 of Juliet Evening and Weekend Platoon. And today we're going to cover third-party APIs, Postman, Fetch, and JSON. Today's actually a really good lesson because we're going to be talking about kind of the backbone of how applications talk to each other over the internet. This is the predominant way that applications talk to each other over the internet. Um, as we discussed what an API is, an API just stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's how just one application talks to another over the internet. My favorite example of this is there's a million examples of this, but I'll give you my favorite one. Everyone everyone use the Airbnb app? All right. If you use an Airbnb app and have ever booked anything on Airbnb, once you book something, it has a very cool integration where it will show you the address of your Airbnb. And then you can click on it. And then it gives you the option. You can click on the map in the pin, and it gives you an option of opening the map in Apple Maps or Google Maps. Everyone remember that integration? Awesome. You click on it, and then it takes you to your respective app, whether you use Apple Maps or Google Maps, and then you can get to your location. Yes? Everyone has seen that? All right. That to me is my favorite example of applications talking to each other. So you have a company like Airbnb that pays Google for the right to use that API, right, at a big scale, right, at like a giant Airbnb type of scale. Um, Google maintains that API because a lot of people use it, right? And Airbnb pays Google to use that API and integrate it into their application because it's super mega useful. Yes? That's just one example, but probably my favorite example. You can probably think of your own. So let's talk about third-party APIs. So in that little scenario, the Google API is a third-party API to which company?
Uber.
Oh, Uber's one. Yeah, you could use Uber, but the example that I gave was Airbnb, right? That's the answer. So Airbnb utilizes this third-party API, which in this case is the Google Maps API. Yes? I'll give you a real world example. When I worked at DRW heavily utilized the Bloomberg API. Does anybody know what the Bloomberg API produces?
Yeah, it pretty much it helps traders analyze like what's happening in real
It
time,
doesn't help traders analyze in real time. It just provides real time what?
real time data. Well,
What data? Does anybody know?
isn't it like stock market data or something like that?
Yeah, prices,
Yeah.
right? Prices of stocks, prices of futures, stuff like that. So look at what DRW is, a prop trading firm. Who do they pay? They pay a lot of money to Bloomberg to use the Bloomberg API that produces real-time prices on things that they use, right? That's a real world example. Make sense? And that's how these a lot of these. It's not the only way, but this is the backbone of how applications communicate over the internet. There's a bunch of things that we don't teach you, like PubSub or WebSockets or file transfers. There's other ways that apps communicate, but the predominant way over the internet is just an API. And a lot of the times, actually, most of the time, APIs are just URLs, right? It's an address somewhere. Um, that's what we're going to show today. Okay. So APIs. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use the Fetch API to get and post requests to external APIs. You're going to be able to parse JSON responses and render the data dynamically on a web page. Can anyone tell me what JSON is? We've talked about it. I always forget what it stands for. What's JSON in its simplest terms?
So a document that represents key value.
Yeah, it's just a big object with key values, right? It's a JavaScript object notation It's the way that package data. And the reason why, well, one of the reasons that JSON became really popular is because pretty much every programming language in use today can package JSON and read it. Does everyone understand that? So if an application is written all in Rust and an application is just written all in TypeScript or Java or whatever, they all have a way to send data to each other via JSON. I'm sure there's probably numerous other reasons why it became really popular, but that's one of the reasons, right? And that's also probably the predominant way the applications send data to each other through just these giant JSON packages, which in reality, under the hood, is just one big dictionary full of key value pairs. Yes? You might have already figured this out, but the most important data structure in all of programming is what? Just said it. The dictionary. Uh, can anyone tell me why or speculate why?
Fast data.
Yeah, but that's a really broad statement. What about it is fast? You're close. This is actually really important.
Like instantaneous data retrieval.
That's it. Direct access, constant access in terms of time complexity. If you know the key, you can grab the value. You don't have to iterate. You can have a dictionary with 10 million elements. If you know the key, it's constant time. Yes? When you log in into any web page with your email and your password, right? Under the hood, and this is a little bit of what we're going to talk about, right? It makes a GET request somewhere in their database and grabs your credentials and grabs your app. Let's use Netflix, for example. You log in with your username, you log in with your password, right? I'm not going to talk about authentication right now, but just kind of like a gross oversimplification, right? It has your credentials, it returns your profile to your desktop or your iPad or wherever you're watching Netflix. Make sense? It loads up all your previously viewed. It loads up your favorites. It even queues up that, Stranger Things episode where you left off on minute 13, season 3, episode 4, minute 13. It does all that. Yes. It just grabs that dictionary full of information and then loads it on the GUI for you. Does it have to iterate through, I don't know how many accounts Netflix has worldwide or in America? A lot. It took a long time to iterate through all that stuff. It's not going to do that. It's just going to access it with constant time. Grab it. Yes? Alrighty. All right, so we're going to be able to parse JSON responses and render data dynamically on the web page. And then we're going to test API endpoints using Postman. If you don't already have Postman, go ahead and download it. Do not use it. Well, you can use the browser, but I highly recommend you actually download the app. So Postman, make sure you have the app. This is like dark mode, but if you want to light mode, you can. This is the actual app, and you can sign in with like Google or whatever. But make sure you have the app. And the reason for that is when you're launching and developing web pages locally, if you use the browser is not going to have access to your computer. So when you're pinging localhost, you're not going to be able to do it. All right, so definitely download the application. This is not the only way to do it, but everyone loves Postman because it's got a lot of really cool and unique functionality that you don't have to pay for. It's free. I'm actually going to pause here. Give me 1 second. Why does that say Docker desktop? with a really nice GUI that you can, save, get requests, post requests, whatever the case may be. You can do a bunch at the time. It's really useful. There's other options besides Postman. I think there's like Thunderfly and a bunch of other ones built into VS Code. You're more than welcome to experiment with those, but the GOAT of all of them is Postman. So download Postman. That's my little spiel on Postman. Done. All right. So Postman is widely used tool for testing and developing APIs, like a curl. I'll get into curl in a second. It's more or less the same thing. It's just a GET request under the hood, but it's a command that you run in the terminal. So you can run it here. You can just run it here. And I'll give an example of that in a little bit. All right. So download your Postman. It's super useful. All right. So for now, you notice that I didn't sign in on mine. You don't have to sign in. It works without signing in, but you can sign in and then, customize your profile and all that stuff for free. It's awesome. All right. So we can make a request to any URL, including local hosts. We'll use everyone's favorite dummy API to request. I'm actually not going to use the one. I am going to use the Pokemon API because it's my favorite API. So we're going to mess with a couple of different APIs today that are not in the README, but no worries. We're going to mess with this bad boy right here. Just posted it in the Slack channel. Now, if I can figure out how to open this again. Boom. There you go. We're going to mess with Postman. So paste. What URL am I pinging here? Actually, this would be useful if I just bring this over. All right. This is my favorite beginner API. It's called the Pokemon API. What do you think it's going to do when we ping this specific API? It's going to give me information about which Pokemon. If you're not familiar with Pokemon, that's okay. Let's do a popular one. Let's do Pikachu. Everyone knows Pikachu. It's going to return information on Pikachu. Right. So I'm going to copy this. I already copied it. I can do Pikachu. Pikachu. Right. If I hit send, I am going to make a GET request to this endpoint, and it's going to send me a bunch of information about which Pokemon?
Pikachu.
Pikachu. Boom. There you go. Awesome. I just notice the beginning of this data, curly braces, right? That kind of tips you off. Hey, this is JSON, right? It gives you all this information on Pikachu. It gives you like game index. Maybe that's a number in the game. Yeah. Gives you a bunch of information. It gives you information about like the number that he's at in certain games, which versions. Then it gives you this information, which is what?
Moves.
Yeah, this starts to look like, hey, there's moves on a specific game. Red and blue, that's a game. It starts telling you, hey, these moves are available maybe in certain games, right? Gives you a bunch of information about Pikachu, right? If I did Charmander, which is another Pokemon, Charmander, right? I do another GET request. It returns information. Notice abilities, Blaze. Charmander is a fire Pokemon. It gives you information on some of his abilities. And that's it. Okay, so what does this Pokemon API provide the user, which is us?
The ability of the Pokemon.
Yeah, it gives us a bunch of information about certain Pokemon, right? The Pokemon DB is a database with a bunch of Pokemon information. And if you change, these are known, I don't know if this gets into it, these are known as query parameters, right? If you change it, right, it says, hey, give me all the information on Pikachu. Hey, give me all the information on Charmander. Hey, give me all the information on, Mewtwo, whatever Pokemon you pass in to this string. Because this is all this is, right? This is just a string that we're pinging. It's an address. Very similar to how you go to google.com or espn.com. Same idea. Except here you're making, and this is actually really important here. because this is going to matter later. You're making a GET request saying, hey, X database or whatever Pokemon database, give me all the information you have on this Pokemon. Make sense? So now I'm able to retrieve that information. Now in this example, it's just silly Pokemon information. Yes? Sweet, we're just learning what APIs are conceptually, we're about to learn what a fetch is. Awesome. But in the real life, in real life, you have these third-party integrations that return real data that's very useful. The example that we gave is Airbnb using the Google Maps API. Yes? Very useful. Yes? And one of my favorite relatively recent implementations of the Google API is you're driving somewhere, right? And it tells you, hey, there's a police officer up ahead. And then you slow down a little bit. That's great functionality, right? For the user, which is us. Yes? They built that into their API. That's a little more advanced, but I just like that functionality. And I think a lot of people do. And I just wanted to bring it up. All right. So that's an example of making a GET request to this endpoint. A GET request is just a read request to this specific endpoint for information. There's a bunch of different types of requests that we're not going to cover today, but I'll go over them here, right? GET request is just a read request. A post request is a you're creating something on their end, or you're sending information. The perfect example of a post would be something like account creation, right? Let's say I went to, I don't have a Netflix account, but I go to Netflix because we've been using it. I talk about it all the time. I don't have a create account. I don't have a Netflix account, so I don't even know how this works.
I think that was the create account page because it was asking for your email to get started.
Okay. All right, here we go. Yep. All right, sorry, I'm not used to going to this. Okay, an example of a post would be something like this. If I was to create an account, right? A get is just a read request. Hey, give me information once I'm already logged in. But if this specific application didn't know who I was, it can't retrieve information it doesn't have, correct? So I would have to create something on their backend, right? Something like a create an account. And it would create it on their backend. That way, the second time that I log in, it has my information and I can log in. Yes? That's an example of a post. Put is an edit to something that's already created, right? Patch, kind of in the same vein, right? Kind of an update to something that's already there. And then delete is deleting something like deleting your account. We're not going to get into the last two for right now, but this directly correlates, and I don't know if the curriculum touches upon it, but we'll touch upon it here. Let's do index.txt. Right, you have get, post, put, delete. These are your big ones, right? This is what you see in Postman. Let me switch this. This is what you see in Postman. These are the big four here. These directly correlate to something called CRUD. Has anyone ever heard of a CRUD app? I don't know if anyone have any of the instructions mentioned this yet.
I think
Okay.
it's create, read, update.
Yep. Yeah. So these directly create, read, update, delete. So if you think of any major application that you can possibly think of, they're all CRUD apps, right? Can you create something on the application? Typically, yes, even if it's just your account. Can you read something on the application? Yes, pretty much anything that the GUI shows is something that you're reading. You're sending a GET request. Can you update something on that specific application? Most of the time, yes, even if it's just personal information. And can you delete your account or delete something on that application? Typically, yes. Does that make sense? So these HTTP protocols, as they're called, correlate directly to this, these CRUD apps. So pretty much everything on the internet is a CRUD app, right? And create correlates to post, read correlates to get, update correlates to put, and delete, well, correlates to delete. If you haven't seen that before, I know that can get a little confusing. So that's okay if you don't fully understand it right now. But when people talk about CRUD apps, that's pretty much most apps on the internet right now. And they correspond to specific HTTP protocols that are here. And you see in Postman. Right now, we're only using a GET, but I think we talk about a post here in a second. Make sense? Okay, cool. Postman. So you can see Postman, you can do any one of these actions, right? But for right now, we're only going to do GETs. Alrighty. So this just gives an example of pinging this dummy API. I used a different one. I used the Pokemon API. So this one, give me 1 second. Okay, cool. So I just showed you a specific, let's look at this dummy API. We can open it. We can use that one too. Let's look at it. I just ran a GET request on the Pokemon API, but nothing stops me from, oh, give me 1 second. Running it on this as well. When I ran a GET request on this specific URL, what did I get? I didn't get JSON. What did I get?
You got the HTML page.
Yeah, I got the HTML page, right? So when you run GET request, a lot of the time you're going to get JSON, but not always. Sometimes you'll get HTML. Sometimes you'll get XML. You get slightly different things. Who controls what information you get back?
That specific URL's website.
Yep. It's whoever maintains that endpoint. It's whatever the endpoint says. Remember, you're making a request to them, and it's up to them to say, hey, we have this to give you. Here it is. Okay, so this returns.
Wait, I actually have a question about that. When you say
Yep.
it's the person maintaining the endpoint, are you talking about the person who is managing the website?
It's whoever owns the API. They're the ones that wrote it. And
Okay.
it can return whatever the person that wrote it wants it to return.
And when you say like they're whoever's managing the API, how would you get access to, is it just having access to the person's website URL or I don't,
It needs to be an endpoint specifically,
okay.
right? And they decide. Like you can, no one ever does this, but you can build your own API and build your personal app on it, right? Building an APIs is like a normal dev task. It happens all the time. So people build these things. Like I gave you the example of this Pokemon API. I don't know who built this, but there's a team that's in charge of maintaining this. And and they're the ones that wrote the documents for it. They decide, hey, what information are we going to return with Pikachu? I know there's a bunch of different generations of Pokemon. Hey, are we going to include all of them? Hey, are we only going to include the first 5? Like, and so on and so forth. It's whoever built the API and maintains it, right? And whoever built the API maintains it at any point can update it, can take it off the internet, can do whatever they want with it. It's theirs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So pretty much what I'm hearing you saying is like there's a website endpoint for pointing to that API, and whoever's maintaining, you could use it if they want you to.
Yes. And we're going to get into authorization and authentication later.
Okay.
So I think it's really important that you understand this just as an endpoint, a place where you can ask for information initially, not just any website. Because a website's not necessary. A website does have a URL, but not all URLs are API endpoints. Does everyone understand that?
I do now.
Okay, that's super important to understand. All websites on the internet, I think, let me think. Yes, all websites on the internet and some that are not on the internet have URLs. They have an address of where to find them, right? But not all URLs are API endpoints. Just like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares.
Do you
Same
know
idea.
any examples of URLs that don't have APIs in their URL?
Say that again.
Do you have any examples of websites that don't have an API?
That don't have a URL? No. That's why I said I think all of them have a URL, right? They all have to have an address.
Well, I meant like any URLs that don't have an API integrated in them.
Uh yeah, most of them. Netflix. Now they have an internal API that they use and they built, right? But it's not accessible to the public. Sometimes they're accessible to the public, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just internal. I don't want to get in a deep rabbit hole, right? But anyone can create an API. Sometimes people can monetize an API. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes the documentation is great. Sometimes it's non-existent. Sometimes it's for enterprise use only. Sometimes it's for personal use for developers learning how to use them like this, right? This API is free to the public, right? There's no kind of like special keys to access it. It really is open. Anybody can ping it, right? Sometimes they're like this, beginner APIs. Sometimes they're heavily monetized, like the Bloomberg API, right? That really no individual really has a need for it. That would be a company paying them for like an enterprise license kind of thing. Does that answer your question, Steph? It just depends what it is.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of a big idea. So
Just
try to
one
stay.
last question. Would an
Yep.
API endpoint have the word API in it?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I'm going to drop this in the chat just because you mentioned it, and we're going to play with this in a little bit. Look at this one we're going to use. Don't mess with it yet because it kind of gets ahead of where we're at right now. But I'm going to drop it in here because it literally has API in the name. Dropped it in the Slack, and we'll use that one a little bit later. That's the NASA API endpoint, but it starts introducing you to tokens as a way to authenticate who you are and use that API. And we'll talk about it here in just 1 second. But let's get back to this. All right, we talked about a GET request, and a GET request, things like pinging the Pokemon API for just Pikachu. Hey, give me all the information you have on Pikachu. Pinging it for Charmander. Hey, give me all the information you have on Charmander. Sweet. You can also make a post request, which is what you see here, right? We can also make post requests. And if you remember my notes, what's a post request? You're essentially doing what in layman's terms? You're
creating, right?
Yeah, you're creating. You're creating something. All right. Let's see if we can nail this down. Let's look at Facebook. Facebook is a CRUD app. All right. Give me the four. Give me the CRUD of Facebook. Where do you create?
Facebook page account.
You can create a Facebook page account. What else? What about the app? That's not the only place you see it. Where else do you see it? You're already logged in. What's it create?
Profile.
Yeah, but that's when you create an account, it gives you a profile by default. It's the same thing. Think about how you interact with Facebook or Instagram or literally anything.
Post.
Everything is a post. My delicious Texas Roadhouse steak. Someone give me an update on Facebook. Misspelled steak on post edit. Yes? Someone give me a read. Can you read other users' posts? Right? Alana reads my amazing Texas Roadhouse post and likes it. Give me a delete.
Maybe delete an image.
Yeah. My Texas Roadhouse post only got one like from Alana. Delete it. Easy, right? Let's do something that's not so obvious. Let's do WhatsApp. WhatsApp, it's what type of platform?
Messaging.
Yeah, messaging app. Very different than Facebook, but same thing applies. Give me the create.
Facebook owns them now, I think.
Say that again?
I think Facebook owns them now.
Oh,
What?
yeah. But even before then, it never stopped doing the same thing. It still does the same thing today.
Text
Uh,
message.
You can create a story.
Create a story or a text message, right? You message someone you just met. That's a create, right? There's never been a link between those two accounts that you create something. Sweet. Give me an update. Edit a text message, right? Anybody else hate Android because you can't edit a typo in a message? That's annoying. That's a flaw of a non-cloud-based messaging platform. Give me a read. Don't overthink it. You can do what?
With the like read notification,
Read notifications or
or
messages
read notification, I mean.
or stories, right? Any of that.
Yeah.
And you can delete what?
Delete your messages.
Yeah, delete your messages. Or stories. I guess there's stories on there now. I don't never use them. Card app. Yes? All right. There you go. Just two examples. All right. We jumped a little bit ahead and we talked about CRUD and we talked about all these HTTP protocols. But really the main lesson is really just to understand read and to understand post, but I already gave you a very light intro into the other two, which are the main four. There's small nuances to that. I think they invented a new one recently called query, but we can talk about that at a later date. All right, so back to this. We talked about read. Let's talk to post. Now, post is really interesting. There are a lot of options regarding sending data. Here, we're typing in our own JSON object according to the API specifications. And when you make this post request, what are you sending? What does this image show? That you're sending, yeah, you're sending JSON, but in reality,
Dictionary?
you're sending a dictionary of JSON, but you're just sending information, right? So this is a really important distinction here between a get request, right? When you're saying, hey, just send me information on Charmander, and then a post request where the backend API, right, needs to know if you're making a post, the backend API needs to know what? Instead of just saying, hey, give me all this information on Pikachu or Charmander, right? A post, you need to send one information with a post. You need to send some information, right? That the backend API is going to use to create this new thing, whatever it is, right? And this is a specific example is using title, body, and then user ID, right? It's sending, hey, this is the user ID, this is who I am, and then this is the title and body that I want created, right? So when you send a GET request, you're really only sending, hey, give me information on X Pokemon. I'm using the Pokemon API as an example, right? But when you're sending a post request, it needs a little bit more information because it needs to know what to create. Yes? Okay, so this is a little outside of the scope of today's lesson, but let's touch on it because this is actually really important to understand. Let me delete this. Let's just talk these HTTP methods here. If you send a GET request, what information do you have to send? Just what information you need, right? Let's use the Pokemon API as an example, right? A GET request is just a read. You're just reading this specific information from the endpoint, right? But if you make a post request, you need to send a little bit more information, typically in JSON, saying, hey, create a post is a create, right? So you have to send what to create. You need to tell it, hey, what to create. All right, I gave you those two. This is not in the lesson, but I think you can figure this out. A put is an update, right? So if you send a put request, what information do you think you need to send?
The information that you're trying to update.
Yeah, that's it. If it's an update of information, you need to tell it, hey, this is the thing I'm trying to edit, make this update, and then make this edit. Right? Now, the last one, if you send a delete request, what information you think the backend needs to get?
The
Like trying
information
to
you're trying to delete.
That's it. Hey, tell it what to delete, and then it'll delete it. If you send a delete and you don't tell it what to delete, it can't do it. You have a question, Orion?
Yeah, that was
that
me,
was just a
Jay. What do you keep saying back end, right? Um, what specific service are we sending these to? Is it
Good
to the
question.
database?
Good question. I'm going to give you a quick outline of an application if people haven't. This is a gross oversimplification. There's a lot of layers to this, but we're going to start here. Yes? Front end, what the user sees. Yes? When I go to my Pokemon API, here, this is the front end of this web page. I can see it. Yes? User interacts with it. Sweet. Then there's an API. This is kind of the middleman. Middleman that connects front end to backend. And then your backend is a database. How useful is an application that doesn't persist data?
Guess it depends on the application. What it's
The answer is not useful at all. Remember when we had a lesson a little while ago? I was your instructor for that lesson. We were doing, what were we doing? Ah, yes, we were doing files and CSVs, right? And the files and CSV lesson was a very soft introduction to this idea of data persistence, right? We just use files and CSVs as a light intro, but eventually you'll be introduced. We're going to be using Postgres, that SQL database, right? So when people talk about a three-tiered application, this is what they're looking at. There's a lot more to this, but for right now, this is enough. So when I talk about the back end, right, I'm just talking about these two elements in this scenario. Right now, we haven't introduced backends, so in reality, I'm just talking about the API. Right. You've already been introduced to the front end. We're talking about APIs today. Guess what the next thing you're going to learn is? Databases. Make sense?
It makes a lot more sense now. Yeah.
This is not in the lesson, but it probably should be. Again, no hard and fast way to teach some of this stuff. It's just kind of all over the place. This makes sense?
Is a good use of API like when you're trying to connect your two different bank accounts, and instead of you filling in all the information, it just opens up the other app, gives you the option to open up the app from the partnered bank, click on it, you log in, and it just retrieves all your information and connects it.
You're using your noodle, Lorraine. Yes. That's a great example. If you've ever done that, that's exactly what's happening. So let's take, I don't even know if this is possible, but I'm just going to use this as an example. Let's say you have, this is a real example. I think I've done this. If you have like an investment account, like with Schwab or like Fidelity, and it asks you to add your account, this is kind of right. This is what you're saying, right? And then it'll give you an option of a bunch of banks. And then you click on Chase or Bank of America or whatever, and you click on it and it opens up that app and you log in. And now Fidelity can load all your credentials, all your like Chase Bank or Bank of America credentials in there. And now you can deposit money and stuff. That's a third-party integration between Fidelity and all your banks. That's a great example. So it's pinging, right, through a secure connection, right? It has established in their code base, in Fidelity's code base, right? There's an integration to the Chase API, to the Bank of America API, to the Wells Fargo API, to the Frost Bank API. All those integrations exist in their code base. And that's because they've talked and say, hey, we're going to establish this secure protocol so we can make it easy to transfer money. And, you know, all the people that get paid a lot of money said yes. And then they told the devs to do it. Fantastic example, 10 gold stars already. Does everyone understand that? Good. Alrighty. So we talk about the post, right? And here's the response once you make the post, it'll return. And we haven't talked about error codes, right? You guys haven't talked about error codes or success codes, I don't think. I don't even know what this is called, honestly. HTTP codes, there we go. MDN. Let's look at this briefly. When you see this lesson, you see stuff like 201 created. these status codes actually mean something. You don't have to memorize what all of them do, just have a general idea of the number and what they are, right? 200 responses are successful responses. So if the response is a 200 response, it's successful, right? If you get a 300, these are actually kind of rare. It would be some kind of redirection of some type. These don't end up being a final state. Typically, you'll get an error or something. And then the other two you really need to understand is 400 and 500. A 400 is a client error. It's an error on the user end, my end, the person using it, typically wrong password or something like that. And then number 5, the 500 status responses, right, is a server error. That means that what you are pinging is down or there's an error with it, right? So the 3 main ones you need to remember right now is just the series. 200 successful, right? 400 client error, my end. 500 error, server error. That means that the server, whatever you're pinging, is down typically. There's more nuance to that, but for right now, that's good enough. Has this been introduced yet or no? Am I just flooding you with a bunch of stuff? If it hasn't been introduced, that's okay. No worries. It's been introduced now. And eventually we're going to figure it out. So there you go. So when you see stuff like this 201, it means that, hey, it was successful. And the 201 means, hey, this post was created successfully. Nice job. Great job with the post. You sent the information that the endpoint needed to create whatever it is you were creating. Alrighty. So this gives an example of just a little web page, right? You can create this index.html. You can, connect it to your CSS, right? And you can run the fetch, but really the crux of this whole thing is just the fetch. So that's what we're going to talk about. This is an async await fetch call in JavaScript. This is the template for it. It says async function. You call it fetch data, right? This is an example using which kind of API? I showed you the Pokemon API, but this example you're using, and this web page is built around what API?
Weather?
Yeah, just the weather API. Just the weather API, right? So this is going to use the weather URL, right? It's going to await the return of the response, right? It's going to parse the JSON because it's going to get JSON, and then you're going to console log this JSON data, right? So some things to notice, that the function starts with async keyword because it returns a promise. And I don't want to get too deep into what a promise is, right? But I'll just explain it this way. This is my favorite explanation of a promise. You guys all been to Costco? No one's ever been to Costco. Yeah, you have. You've been to Costco. Pretend you've been to Costco. All right. When you go to Costco and you're done spending $600 on whatever it is you were buying, but somehow they always get you for $600. You go up and you want to get a good value, right? So you line up and then you get a little kiosk and you order your $1.50 glizzy. You order your $1.50 glizzy. When you order your glizzy, do you get your glizzy automatically when you pay? No. You have to stand there awkwardly with your $600 worth of crap and wait, right? Wait for them to do what? Don't overthink it. When I order and pay for my glizzy, I have to wait for what? For them to do what?
Make it.
Yeah, make it and give it to you. So that takes time, right? It's not automatic. All right. What's a promise? When you send a GET request, or any kind of request, really, when you send it, it's not automatic. It has to go to that server. They need to make it and then send it back to you, right? And in that time, you have to wait for the response. So if I read this, right? Hey, give it the keyword async because we're gonna have to wait for this glizzy to get finished or for this information to get packaged nicely for it to be returned to me so I could print it or do whatever I want with it. All right. So, hey, this is going to be a special type of function where I don't want you to return anything to me until the information is ready, until my hot dog is ready, right? And then I can do whatever I want with it. In this case, I just console log it, right? So, hey, I'm going to write a function that's going to have to wait for something to happen, right? This is the URL. This is the API endpoint, right? Go ahead and fetch it, but wait until that information is ready. Then once it's ready, I want you to parse it because it's going to come in JSON. Then I want you to print it. That's how that reads. This is a special type of function that needs to wait for something to happen for it to return. That's the only thing the async await syntax is. You're just telling it ahead of time, hey, this is not a normal function, right? It's a function that's going to necessitate that we wait for a response before you return. Does everyone understand that? That's all it is, nothing more to it. Okay, let's just analyze this URL a little bit. What do you notice about the forecast that you're going to get? I've highlighted what I want you to pay attention to right there.
The
Temperature.
longitude and latitude.
Yeah, it's asking there, hey, give me the weather of this specific spot on the globe, right? You can't just be like, hey, send me some weather information. Well, it just depends, right? Are you in Dubai or are you in Seattle? That makes sense? These are just query parameters. Remember when I pinged the Pokemon API? Do I want information from Pikachu or Charmander or Squirtle? I think that's how you spell Squirtle. Is that how you spell it? Two T's? No, one T. One T. Right? So these are just query parameters, actually. Where was that? Oh, I'm all lost. So this is just saying, hey, I want information from this specific location. Very similar to what we saw with the Pokemon API, right? Not Charmander, but Pikachu. Not Seattle, but Dubai. Right? That's what you're passing in. Alrighty. So some things to notice. The function definition needs to start with the async keyword. We talked about a promise and why that's the case. We talked about JSON and parsing it. This is the information. This is an example of what would be returned. And this just goes into parsing that JSON response, right? And preparing it for the user. Let's look at it. This is pretty much the exact thing that we just looked at, right? Parses a response, but you notice that instead of just console logging right after, which is what we did here, we do, if this is an actual web page, we take one more step. And what do we do here? How do we read this? So we parse this weather data and we do what with it?
Create a variable.
Yeah. We just create a variable and we dig into it, right? This is JSON. So eventually this is just going to be a dictionary. And what do you see here? Dot notation, right? You just drill into the object, right? You grab JSON object. There's a key called current weather. You go into it and you just want the temperature. So you go into the key temperature and now you have the temp that you can console log. Once you have all that, you can literally just put it into the GUI, which is what this is doing, right? So you end up, I think I had it loaded. Did I have it loaded? Well, we're going to load it now. Oh, have you guys downloaded Live Server yet? If you haven't downloaded Live Server, download that in your VS Code. Here we go. And you end up with something like this, right there in the GUI. And we can step through this entire application right here. So I have it. And this is literally just copy paste from the README. You have your index.html right here. You could even see the comments. I just copied pasted, right? This just has a div on it, right? Where it's going to show current temperature in Chicago. And you have a small p tag here with an ID 10. So if I actually go to my app.js, right, it specifically grabs that temp ID and just injects the degrees, right? This is just a template string, right? Instead of console logging the temp, it inserts it as an HTML element, right? And then it loads. Once you have that information, you can do anything with it. You can show it to the user. You can do other things with it. You're not limited in what you can do with it. Make sense? Cool. All right. So this is just the example. And here are your assignments. Explore an API with Postman. Let's look at this example. Here, I'm going to give you one more. I'm going to give you some examples here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to drop this in the chat. Boom. I'm going to give you all my favorite examples. There you go. Why is this not working? There you go. All right, there you go. All right, curl and Postman. Practice hitting real public API endpoints from 2 different tools, the curl command line and Postman. You'll save work as you go, so you have an artifact to look back on. Requirements, curl, pick an API and explore it. This gives you, there's a bunch of these. There's a doggy. Oh yeah, I remember this one. There's a bunch of APIs, and I actually just dropped another of my favorite ones in the chat. So you can use any of these. You can use any of those. This is what I want you to focus on. Pinging 3 or 4 of those APIs using Postman and see what information you get. And once you're done with Postman, work on a curl. A curl is just a GET request using your terminal. But the idea is going to be the same. Alana, do you have a question?
Yes, we're getting an error message saying we can't open the page.
Can't open what page?
The Explore an API with curl and Postman. It says page not found.
Is it on? You clicked it from the Excel spreadsheet?
Exactly.
It might be like a permissions thing, the way that you guys keep like the assessments. For some reason, maybe that one, the permissions on that page.
Is anyone having the same issue?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Everybody, yeah.
What the heck? For the curl and Postman assignment? Give me,
Yes.
let me pause this recording. Alrighty, we got that fixed. That repo ended up being, for whatever reason, set to private and nothing else was. Alrighty, so curl and Postman. Really the first assignment is we're just playing with Postman, play with Postman, play with curl, ping as many as those different APIs. Ping 3 or 4 of the APIs, right? Just kind of get a feel for pinging APIs, and also super important, write a couple of async await functions. Play with the syntax, make sure you understand it. Does everyone understand what your first assignment is? Yes? All right, so your assignment is play with Postman, ping 3 or 4 of those APIs, write a couple of fetch calls, right? And the last thing I want everyone to do is I dropped the NASA picture of the day API. I want that API to be your last one. And the reason why I want that to be your last API that you test is because you're going to have to use your personal email, sign up for a token. And when you request the NASA picture of the day image, you're going to have to send a token with it. Does that make sense? Okay, that's going to introduce you, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Wait, give me a second. Make sure let me back out here. I'm going to stop. Okay. The reason why I want the NASA picture of the API to be your last one is because that's going to introduce you to authenticating with your API. So I gave you the example of the Pokemon API and that dummy API, and there's a bunch of APIs like the dog API that gives you random dogs every day, pictures of dogs. All those are not protected. They're API endpoints that anyone can pick. But when you get into the real world, right, everything that you deal with, they're protected, right? You have to authenticate who you are, and then there's this whole authorization business that goes with it. There's more to it than just pinging a public API. All the good APIs aren't public for a multitude of different reasons. And actually, a big of the reason being that they want you to pay for it. Make sense? If someone has spent a lot of time producing something of value for the community, typically they want to monetize it, right? A good example is the Bloomberg API, right? It's incredibly valuable for a lot of companies. So people have to pay for it. Make sense? And you're going to realize probably getting a little ahead of myself, but we're going to say it anyway. Not all APIs are very user or developer friendly. Some APIs are pretty easy to use. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a well-known example. Some APIs are really easy to use. The Google Maps API is super user friendly, right? And actually, I'll turn off the recording here. Don't want to. Deep progress so far. How are we doing?
Making progress.
Good. What's the difference between Postman and curl? Did anyone try it?
I got the curl, but I didn't get to do the Postman.
That's okay. What's the difference, Alana? You did the curl. You saw me do the Postman. What's the difference? Just
They're
fundamentally.
the same.
A curl, yeah. You can do the
One's a
same
UI.
thing. Yeah, one has a nice UI, and the other one is kind of a pain in the ass to type out. Could you do it in?
to read as well. There's so much information on it.
Yeah. Let's show that real quick. Oh God. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. I'm going to run just this get command, and I'm doing a get command. I'm requesting one information from this Pokemon API.
Charmander.
Charmander, right? So I hit it. The curl is just a get request. Can I do a curl post? Could I do a curl update? Yes, I can do all of that. But this is not very user friendly, is it? Right? Just hard to read. Exactly what Steve was saying, and kind of a pain to type out. That's why people love Postman or Thunder Client, or I think there's even a post there. Google it or search it on VS Code. I'm pretty sure there's a Postman extension as well on VS Code now. Back in the older days, that didn't exist, but I think in the last couple of years they probably built one. So I think you can even get like a fancy extension on your VS Code. Feel free to do that. I personally like the app separate because I can move it. Not that you can't do this with VS Code, but I like to move it to a different screen, and I kind of like it. Also, the app lets you like save specific routes. and methods in a bunch of different tabs and subfolders, which is super nice. Even the free version allows it. So that's why Postman's goated. It's the best. Okay, so fundamental difference between curl commands and Postman is really just a Postman. Super nice because it's a GUI. You can do everything in the terminal as always, but it's just kind of a pain. That thing you should have got that much. Did anybody get to the NASA picture of the day API? No one got to that. That's okay. I'm going to show you something before we kind of wrap up here. Not wrap up. We're barely starting. But I'm going to show you kind of how, thanks, Brenda. I'm going to show you a little bit on how you ultimately will develop websites. This is going to be incredibly crude, but we're going to do our best. Everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So here we go. You had a chance to play around with Postman or curl or both. We got a little bit of time to do that. Awesome. If you need more time with that, after we go into the second individual breakout rooms, feel free to mess around with that some more. If you're already done with that, you've kind of got the hang of it. I'm about to give you your next assignment. You're going to do the following, and you're going to do it for the NASA picture of the day API. I'm going to show it to you with Pokemon. You're going to do it with NASA. Yes? We're not even going to get to the homework assignment and the README until probably this afternoon in groups. So here we go. We're going to just create a very simple web page, and this is kind of the starts of it. All right, so inside my app folder, I just have an index HTML. Here, you can put exclamation mark, tab, and it'll give you some boilerplate HTML, so you don't have to type it all out. So here I got exclamation mark, I tab it, and it gives you, look at that, boilerplate. I could create a little, did I mess that up? No. All right, let's try that again. Tab, oh, messed it up. Tab, all right, gives you some boilerplate. Here, I'm just gonna write a little p tag and I'm put like, what up? Save. If you don't have live server, the extension, download it, open with live server. All righty, so we got live server, I got what up. This is my website. Yes, looks sweet, right? Let's do it side by side. All right, I haven't lost anybody yet, right? Got my web page. This is ultimately the beginnings of full stack development right here. Buckle in. All right, so I created my HTML. Look at my app. It's just 2 files. It's my HTML that I just has a p tag on it. Says what's up. Awesome. And then how do I tie it in here? I can add a script tag, right? Script tag, script. That not working. Script. There you go. Script tag. And if I'm curious, hey, I forgot how that goes, you could just kind of look inside. Oh, I didn't add it here. No, I did. Here we go. This is what it is. Boom. And you can go ahead and throw that into your HTML, right? There you go. This is connecting my HTML with my JavaScript. Yes? And if you ever want to test, just console log connected hero. I had a drill sergeant when I was in basic training who called everybody hero. So sometimes I'll call people hero. Let's refresh. If I refresh this, I'm going to bring this down actually. Boom. What does this tell me? It tells me that my JavaScript is now connected to my HTML. Yes? Everyone saw how I did that? I just added a console log and I know that to this script tag, I'm now connected. Yes? Sweet. All right. So this is just a very simple HTML, right? But if I wanted to run an API call on a button click, I could do something as simple as button call my API. Look what I got there. I got a call my API button. Yes? Simple enough. Just created this. All right. We're stringing it all together. I have a what up tag and a button call my API. Right now, this button does what? Doesn't do anything. You're right, Sue. Doesn't do nothing. It's just a button. It's not connected to anything. Yes? All right. let's wire up my button so it calls my Pokemon API and it always calls Pikachu for now. All right, sweet. We're going to wire up this instead of, hey, we're connected here. Oh, we know we're connected. Now we want to ping the Pokemon API, but always call Pikachu, right? So we can go into our README and, oh, I can't remember how to write the fetch call. I can go in here and grab that call, right? Let me go grab that call. Sweet. Grab the call. Obviously, this is not 100% correct because this is pinging the weather API, but this is a boilerplate. This is a start, okay? I have some kind of async call. Sweet. What now? I want to ping the Pokemon API. How would I go about editing this app.js code? I need what?
The API endpoint.
Yeah, I need the API endpoint, and I can go to, we'll go right here, Pokemon API. Look at that, I had it searched. This is my API. The only difference is I'm always going to get Pikachu, right? Submit, make sure it works. All right, sweet, got it. Got the API in here. I'm going to throw it in there. Now I'm going to hard code it to always get Pikachu, right? So I got this, boom, got my Pikachu. Alrighty. So now we know that this fetch call, right? When it runs, it's going to ping, instead of weather URL, it's now Pokemon URL. Sweet. Pokemon URL. Now we're good to go, right? I can just console log JSON data for now. Sweet. Awesome. We are good. This is getting us somewhere. Let me refresh my page. It refreshes, click my API, it does nothing. How would I start to wire this up that when I press call API, it just console logs my Pikachu data? How would I do that? I want on this button click to just console log my data, not even show it to the user, just console log it just so I know, hey, it's reaching the API correctly and it's returning data. And then I'll figure out how to get it on the UI later. But how would I start to do that?
Query solution?
Yeah. Let's go there. Pokemon URL.
Or query selector, my bad.
Yeah, query selector. Sweet. Ah man, I don't remember how to write that. But give me 1 second. I'm like coughing. Not sure why that happened. Okay, yeah. Let's query selector some element. And in this case, button. If you don't remember how to do it, look at the README. I know that I need to grab the button element. Okay, let's see if I have something in the README. I know I had something like that. Yeah, I have something like that. Look at that. It's something like this. This is not quite right, but we'll take it. It's something like document query selector, okay? So I know that I am going to just call it Pokemon button. Pokemon button. Document query selector. And I can actually just choose the type for now. Grab button. Boom. So I think I'm getting button, but there's no way to, I haven't thought of a way to confirm it. Where would I go from here? This is the kind of the process you're about to go through. I'm just kind of walking you through how I would do this. All right, so we have a little HTML, we have a button. We think we're grabbing it, not sure. What do we want to do?
Repeat the question again.
So right now I'm showing you how to make like your very first like web page. So right now we've created a very simple HTML web page that with just a header that says what's up and it has a button click called API. What I want is when I click on call API, I want it to console log something because if we can get that to work, then on the button click, instead of just console logging some string, it can make the API call and then load that Pikachu data, at least in the console. And then I can figure out how to show it to the user. So that's kind of where we're at.
I think Sue had said to add an event listener.
Okay, add an event listener, right? Yes, we can go there. We can go there, and we're going to do that, right? But for right now, is that where we want to go? We got the button. Let's add an event. Yep, let's go there. Let's go button or Pokemon button, right? Pokemon. We're going to come back to this later, right? We knew that it's going to have to call this API. We know that, right? But right now, Pokemon button, right? We're going to add an event listener. Event listener. On click, we want it to do what? We have it do a bunch of stuff. Yeah, call, but that's kind of almost a completed site, right? Can we just console log button being clicked? Would this work? Let's refresh. What's happening here? Can anyone tell me?
It's updating your new code.
No. What's happening on this refresh? What's running?
It's displaying button being clicked on the console.
Yeah, it's running right away. That's not quite what I want, but we're getting closer, right? I want this to show up just on button click. Right now, it's on every refresh, right? So this is not quite right, but we're getting closer, yes?
Yeah.
We're getting closer. This is not quite right. We're getting closer. That's fine. Let's just continue heading in the right direction, right? Awesome. So we know that this button click, now it's doing something. It's not doing quite the right thing that we want, but that's okay. Instead of console logging, can we have it fetch? How about fetch this data? Let's call fetch. Let's call it fetch data. How about that? All right, we have it fetch data. Yes? Let's create a function called fetch data. And if that just console logs fetching some data, right? Let's see how close we got. We refresh, we're good. On this, when I call my API, when I hit that button, what am I going to see in the console?
Fetching some data.
Let's see. Boom. On button click, I'm fetching some data. Getting closer?
Yeah.
All right, definitely getting closer. All right, so now we know that, hey, this is a fetch. We're requesting information from somewhere else. And there's latency there. There's time. It's like the hot dog example of Costco. It's not automatic. You don't pay for something magically your glizzy appears. You need to wait for it. Okay, so we know that this function is going to be an async function, right? So we can delete that, right? This is the same name data. We're going to fetch this, right, from Pikachu. Wait for the response, parse the response because it's coming in as JSON, and then I'm going to console log, right? Awesome. We're there. When I press call my API, what am I going to see in the terminal?
Should be the Pikachu data, right?
Let's see. What is that? The Pikachu data, right? Yes? Sweet, sweet. Now, I'm getting awfully close. So now I have a web page, right? I have a web page that has a button, and when I click it, it makes a GET request. It makes a fetch. Boom. Right now, it's not showing anything to the user. We're just console logging, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's look in here. I think there's like sprites, right? Images. Yeah, there you go. So this is just a dictionary, right? So I can go, right? If JSON data is all the data and I go to dot sprites because it's a dictionary, sprites, what do I get? Let's refresh. Now I'm parsing the data, kind of peeling the onion a little bit. I'm going to click call my API. Look at what I get. What did I get? I got a subset of that data, right? So now I just want the back shiny female. I know that that's the one that I want. Back shiny female. Sweet. So when I refresh and I hit call my API because this is what I'm printing now, what should I get in the terminal? I should get just a
Picture.
URL of an image. And this is a URL of an image. Sweet. Let's see if it is. Pikachu. That's really anticlimactic. Anyway, let's make it mega. Mega Pikachu. There you go. Yes? Be totally dope if you could show this sweet image to the user. Now what? We want to show that image on button click. On button click, I want to show that. I want to display that image to the user. How would I go about doing that? There's some code in here that might help us. Not quite the same code, but it's kind of the right idea.
Is it the window unload?
No.
Insert temp.
So yeah. So here it inserts into the DOM text, but I threw you a curveball a little bit. This is the right concept. So I need to insert it into a DOM, but I don't want to insert text because what do I want to insert?
A picture, an image. So
An
ING.
image. Yeah. So how would I do that?
See if there's an inner.image.
Yeah. Does that exist? Google.
I don't know.
Google.
Let me look.
How do I inject? And what I'm asking everyone to research right now is, I got this URL. I want to show it on the DOM. Is there a place?
Get
in-
item.
No. All right.
Get element by ID.
You're just guessing, Lana. Do not guess.
Couldn't you
All
just
right.
locally store it and then
No. You're there's no reason to store it, right? You're returning it to the user immediately. Now, if he saves it or something, that's outside of the scope of this lesson. All right, so look at my HTML. Everyone look at my HTML. Is there a place to put an image? Look at the body, line 8 to 11. Is there an image tag there?
No, we need to insert one.
Okay, we need an image tag. What is it? IMG? I don't even know.
Yes.
There you go. There you go. There is an image tag in my HTML. Now you can't see it, but I just reloaded it just reloads automatically. But now I have an image tag, right? So now I have a place for this image to go. Now there's nothing showing there because I haven't put one, but I want to do it. I have the URL, right? If I just grab this URL, right, and I drop it in here, it should show, right? What happened? PNG. That's because this is wrong. I added too much. Okay, what do you notice here? So yeah, if I give it the URL, it shows it right off the bat, but that's not quite what I want. What do I want?
You wanted to show it when you click the button.
Yes, I want to show it when I click the button. All right, so here, this is static, but I don't want static. I want dynamic.
On click.
On click, dynamic. Yes. All right, so we know that, hey, it goes here. So we know we have to inject it into the image tag. All right, cool, awesome. Refresh, click the button. I get the right URL. What I want to do is dynamically, right, inject it into that image, right? So how do you do that?
You need to get element by tag name, IMG.
How do I do that?
So
Here?
it would be I think you could do it under the constant JSON data. No,
We're going to put it up here.
yeah, up top. Not in
Why
the
is my
function.
why is my spacing all off? I don't know why my spacing's all off. Why is this all messed up? It doesn't matter. All right, it works. All right, so we're going to grab. So you know how we grab the button element, right? We're going to grab just the image. And right now, I'm not going to mess with IDs or classes or anything because it doesn't matter. There's like 3 elements on there. It doesn't matter. All right, so I'm going to grab this image, right? Pokemon image, Pokemon image, right? I'm going to grab it. All right, so now that I grab it, I know that inside a function, I can do what then?
You can call it now.
You don't call it. The function is the call. This isn't in the README. That's how you guys are struggling, and that's okay. But we know conceptually what it is, right? We just need to find what. We know that this right here, this variable right here points to what? What is this right here? What I have highlighted, what is it?
The API data.
Yeah, but more succinctly.
It points to the PNG image.
Yeah, it's just a URL. So this is const Pokemon URL. Is that not what this is? It's a Pokemon URL, yes? Because that's what we grabbed. So we grabbed that Pokemon URL, right? And now the only thing we need to do is source it, right? So grab your image, which is Pokemon image, right? You grab the image, you source it, Pokemon URL. I think this is right. I don't even know. Pokemon URL has already been declared. What's going on here? Did I mess something up?
Is it because you have it in the const with the full API?
It's because you can't reassign const, right? So this would be not var. What's the other one? Dude, why am I blanking?
Let.
Huh?
Let.
Yeah. Dude, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Thank you, Alana. You saved me. I forgot what it was. That's pretty funny. Okay. Let, yeah. You can't reassign const, right? All right. So let's refresh. It's already been declared. Pokemon. All right. Let Pokemon URL. Oh, this needs to be let too. Sure. Is that what it was? Is that what it's crying about? Line 12. I don't understand what the issue is. Pokemon URL, Pokemon URL. Oh, how about this? let's console log to make sure we still have it. Console log Pokemon URL. Oh, anybody see what my mistake is? I'm trying to declare two Pokemon URLs on line 9 and then line 12. All right, I'm going to call this Pokemon image URL. I didn't even see that I was using it twice. That's what I was complaining about. All right, so now we're going to go back to this Pokemon image URL. All right, sweet. So let's walk through it from the top here. Yeah, this shouldn't have mattered. All right. We declare two variables, Pokemon button, we grab the button, and we also grab the image tag, right? Then on button click, on click, we're going to run the function fetch data. Fetch data is an API call, so it's an async await function, right? It's going to call this API. It's going to wait for the response. It's going to parse the response. You're going to dig into that onion, grab just the image URL. You're going to inject it into the source on button click, right? So when I refresh this page and I click my API, if we did this right, what should we see in the UI?
The Pokemon image upon click.
Yep, on click, I should see the image if we did it right. There it is. Now I could have shown whatever data to the user. I just picked this image. Could I have shown Pikachu's moves and their power in a list? Yes. Could I have shown anything that the API returned? Yes. I had complete control because I'm the one calling that information. Any questions about this so far? Because we're about to step it up here. This is what you're going to do with NASA API. That API returns an image of the day, and that's why I did the image tag as an example. See if you can do it without looking at any of the notes, just based on what we covered here. It's going to be a little bit more nuanced because you're going to have to send the API key, as Brenda mentioned earlier.
The JSON data variable, you said that retrieves that same link from the Pokemon URL?
Say that again?
The JSON data variable that you created, you were saying that returns or it pulls that Pokemon URL?
Yeah, it puts all the information for Pikachu. But look at line 12. I'm just peeling the onion because I don't want all of it. I just wanted that shiny URL image. So that's what line 12 does. And then I just reassign it on line 13.
Okay, but we do need the Pokemon URL variable for that JSON data variable to work, correct?
Yes. Yep. From the top, you're pinging this endpoint. You're waiting for them to package the data and send it to you. Once they send it to you, you're parsing the JSON. Once you parse the JSON, you're digging into the onion, grabbing what you want, injecting it into the UI. Sweet. All right, here's a stretch exercise for you. If I call my API on that button click, it's going to always grab the Pikachu image, yes? That's how my code is written. Every time I click this call my API, I'm going to get the Pikachu image. What if I didn't want that? What if I wanted the user to punch in a Pokemon name and to grab that image? How would you start building that?
You could do the input tag in your HTML.
Let's go. Sorry, I thought that was like a description. It's not, it's the type. We'll just leave it right there. All right. If I click get shiny Pokemon, I still get Pikachu because the fetch call is still hard coded to Pikachu, right? If I just changed the name on that button, but it's still the back end stuff. It's still hard coded to Pikachu. Yes, everyone got me so far? All right. So I just added an input, right? So I can take user input. Here, it'd be dope if I put Charmander and I click get Pokemon shiny. This needs to be a Charmander, not a
You're gonna have to
Pikachu.
erase Pikachu from your app.js.
Yeah, but it needs to be what? If I erase it, that's fine, but it needs to get another query parameter, another value. So what conceptually, I'm not asking for the code here. Conceptually, what needs to change in our code? Let's write some pseudocode. What would have to change for this to work? Right now, I click on get Pokemon shiny. I always get Pikachu because this is hard coded. It'd be dope. It'd be dope if when I click get Pokemon shiny, it reads my user input and it grabs that Pokemon shiny. That's what I want. How would we pseudocode this function right here? Let's do it. What would just pseudocode? I don't need real code. What do we got here? What are we gonna do? We're gonna get what? How about get user input? Yes? Get user input. I'm going to get user input, recreate the URL using template literals, template string, whatever. Yeah? Continue with the rest of the code. That's it. Now, it's a little more nuanced than this, right? If this was a real app, you would validate user input, make sure it's a real Pokemon, and then make the call, right? But for right now, this is fine, right? So this would look like something like let's do. And here it looked like, dude, I forget how to even do template strings, but we're gonna figure it out. What is it, like a money sign? It looked like that. Now line 13 is dynamic. It's gonna grab whatever the user would input, it's gonna attach it to the end, it's gonna search for that Pokemon. Since the structure of the API is all the same, it's gonna pull that image for Charmander or whatever the user input is. Make sense? Too easy. Questions about that? I know that probably went slightly longer than I had hoped, but that's okay. All right, exactly what if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt me, and that applies always. Exactly what I just walked you through. I want you to build that for the NASA API. It doesn't look like anyone got to NASA API, totally fine. See if you can do it with NASA API without looking at anything, just what we covered here. If you need to go look at your notes, totally fine. See if you can work it out with the least amount of notes possible. Yes? And as a stretch challenge, right, that NASA API, you can hard code it for the day you're on, but you could also add user input for the day. Hey, give me the image of the day for September 2nd of 2001 or October 13 of 1996. right? It can take user input and display that. That's a stretch challenge. First, just hard code it to show you the image for today. And then eventually, if you have a little extra time, you can have it take user input. Make sense? So that's kind of how you start building a full stack application. I mean, a gross oversimplification, but good enough for right now. Make sense? Alrighty. Definitely, let's take a break. Let's take a break until 11:30. Oh, let me stop the recording here. How did that group session go?
We want more time.
More time? I understand that. So programming is incredibly time intensive. I know sometimes I only give like 40 or 50 minutes. I know that's not enough time. But I feel weird giving you guys long extended period of times without checking up on you guys. So, but yeah, it's super normal. Was anyone able to finish the NASA API example that could show us? Anyone finish it by chance?
I can share my screen with what I have.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So this is what the preview looks like. If you put in a different date and you click enter, it's supposed to work. Sorry, I think it's being slow. Let's try a second. There we go. So I have my JS file, my index.html, and then my style.css to spruce it up. And pretty straightforward. You just pick a different date, click enter, and it produces the image that you're looking for. That's cool.
Hey, check out that line 14. So that drop down, the calendar drop down is just an HTML element, right? It's on line 12.
Okay.
Just show it to everybody. Like you didn't like create it from scratch or anything. It's built in. That's line 14, right?
This is it's like between line 13 and 14, it looks like. Maybe 13. Get local changes.
No, it's the input, right? It's line 14.
The input tag?
So look at line 14. That comes with HTML. She didn't like create it from like scratch. So look at type. It's date built into HTML. It's just a box. So you can pick the date.
Yeah.
So that's what that is. Right. And she gave it an ID of NASA date input, but that could be anything. But the fact that the type is date, that's what gives you the box. Right. So awesome. And then just show us the JS.
The JS with the query selectors, added the event listener, and then the async function. This is the URL with the special key after sign up. Oop. And then you have the and date. And then
So scroll all the way to the side.
Yeah.
So notice that query parameter right there. It's just date equals, and that's just a template string. And the user input comes in from the user clicking on that menu. Perfect.
Yep. And then we have the window onload and then fetch data.
Sweet.
And if you wanted to see my style CSS file.
And this is just styling it. Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, this is great. This is exactly what you're supposed to do. You could have gone a little bit harder and just taken a specific date from the user input. That would have been slightly more challenging. You can give that a shot later if you get a chance, Steph.
Okay.
But yeah, that's great. Awesome. It should have looked something like that. That was perfect. Anybody else? Anybody take user input like I said it? Like sometimes you'll have, what do they call it? I forget what it is, but it would be like the grayed out letters. They'll show you what date that, like when they ask for a date, they'll show the grayed out letters in the box
That's
forget
what
what
I
it's
was
called.
originally going to do, but I just felt like this was the simplest, like most straightforward
Yeah,
way.
it is the simplest, most straightforward way. And then you can stretch and do that. It's called a placeholder. I couldn't think of it, but it's called a placeholder. It'll be the grayed out. You ever see the grayed out letters on a user input screen? It'll be like month. It'll be like day, y, right? It'll show you exactly how it wants it, right? That's a placeholder. You could have done it that way. Good, awesome. Anyone else? Do it slightly different? Use a placeholder or anything else? Also, you're the one writing the code, right? So the date could be month, day, year. It could be day, month, year. It could be year, month, day. Like, I mean, you're the one writing it. It could be whatever. You can ask the user to oblige to whatever style you want, right? You're the creator. Make sense?
Mine shows up like that. I didn't specify a placeholder just for the image. I did a
Yeah. Can you just show us the UI real quick?
Two. Okay, here we go. So mine's built similar, basically, but instead of the on window down here, I just did it how you had it
Yep.
with the add event listener and pass those in there. Right there, same with the user input. So most of it's pretty much the same. Did my variables up here, and then I say, there we go. So it shows up that way. So you see how they want the date input, photo title.
Punch in a date.
Uh,
And then get a photo. Perfect. Now, do 2030. Check what your app does. What happened here?
It broke.
Yeah, it
Undefined.
has undefined. Why is that? Simple explanation.
There's nothing there for 2030 that
Yeah,
day yet.
it's a day that hasn't happened. It's in the future. All right, we're going to talk about that a little bit. More some graceful error handling. Good. All right, perfect. Yeah, this is great. Awesome. We'll talk about it right now simply because it kind of fits into the conversation. Just briefly. Boop, 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 boop. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So anytime you see any kind of API calls, you always want to wrap them in a try-catch block. And try-catch blocks are always used in API calls because network requests inherently come with risks and sometimes they fail. So you want to handle that error gracefully. I just gave you a very simple example with Orion's application. But this would be something like you see here where you fetch. So it'd be as simple as let's see if I remember how to do this. Just try accept, right? Is that what it is? Try try catch, right? Try catch. Right? And here you catch an error, right? You catch whatever error and you can print whatever. I'm just going to console log for right now. Error retrieving data, whatever, right? And here you would put your actual code. This is a kind of a half-assed example, but good enough. Something like this. So now when you write your API calls, pretty much all of them, right? They should always be wrapped in a try-catch block or try-except. Is try-except Python and try-catch is JavaScript? Or something like that. Try-catch. Yes? They're the same thing. And every language has a version of this, right? So again, network calls inherently come with risk. Sometimes they break. So it's going to run this line by line. And if something in here breaks, it's just going to straight hit the catch block, and then it's going to error out. Typically, you raise an error over here. I'm just console logging, hey, error retrieving something. And this is going to catch anything that it's like a malformed URL, or there's something wrong with the server sometimes. So you would write it something like this. Make sense? So you already wrote your fetch calls, but just know going forward, there should be try catch blocks on all network requests from now until forever. Yes? And I mentioned it earlier, and this is kind of the next layer, right? Now you add graceful error handling. And this idea of graceful error handling and like input validation, you're going to learn throughout the course, but it's a really big thing in software engineering. We never want bad data to ever go past the user interface. It's something that you probably haven't been taught yet, but I'm mentioning it now. You never want bad data to ever get past the user interface. Does anyone know why or can speculate why?
Does it just look unprofessional?
It's not just that, but it typically can break your what? Kind of what happened to our Rains app. It can break your app. And you don't want bad data because ultimately you store that on a database and it can corrupt your database, or it can just not save properly, and corrupted data is very bad. It typically makes applications act wonky. Let me give you a very simple example. Everyone's comfortable with this fetch call, right? I just added a try catch block on it, but it's pretty much the same code. Yes? Let's look. I'm going to delete this, but look at line 9. Yes? You're just grabbing user input. And this was a real application, right? In here, in
You
that
want
user.
input validation?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that. I'm gonna bring that up right now, right? You'd have something like, user validation, and you'd have, I don't even remember how you do it. User input. And typically, and this is the one I'm going to show you because it's the most common you see, right? You'll see some kind of regex and some pattern, whatever. That's not even a real pattern, but whatever, right? You'll do some input validation, and then this will have something like if user validation, and then inside your block, you'll have your code, right? This is, again, kind of a gross oversimplification, but good enough for government work, right? Something like this. So let's read this code very slowly. Right? It'd be something like, hey, on this button click, you're going to run this function called fetch data, right? So it's going to execute this function. You're going to grab the user input, but the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to validate it. Hey, is that legitimate input? Right? Is that going to make the rest of my code run properly? Is it the right date? Is it the right format? Is it the right capitalization? Is it the right characters? Is it the right length? Is it all that? Right? If it is, this will evaluate as true, line 12, and only then will it ping my API. In its most simplest forms, it looks a little like this. Now, how you see it on the screen is really, really simple. If you ever create a new account for an email or something, and it tells you, hey, your password has to be 12 characters and it has to have 7 special characters and has to have a capital letter and a small letter. You guys have gone through that? That's just input validation with a regex. That's all that is, right? It's making sure that, hey, what you're inputting in there is valid, so we can proceed to the post, so we can proceed to the get, so we can proceed to the network call. Does that make sense? You never want to send bad data. Bad data ends at the user interface. You never want it to get any further than that. I showed you the 3 little big layers, right? The front end, the API, the database, and never should ever leave. If you can help it, it's not always possible, but if you can help it, should never leave the front end, ever. Because it will only corrupt everything that comes after. Yes? Alrighty. Sweet. So that's user validation. That's graceful error handling. With the try catch, no, all network calls will always be wrapped in a try catch. Okay, cool. Covered that. Actually, awesome. Let's just look at number guesser. Did anybody start on number guesser by chance? Or guess a number, sorry. All right, we had a couple people start. Any challenges or any places that you're stuck? A couple of people did start, so I don't want to kind of go over something if it doesn't need to be covered. Okay, I'm just going to go over the assignment real quick, and then we'll go back into groups. Sound good? Well, we'll take a break, and then we'll go back into groups. Sound good? I'm just going to walk through it to kind of show you kind of how I think about it, and hopefully that's helpful to you. Yes? Alrighty, so let's tackle it from the beginning. Guess a number. Build a number guessing game in the browser using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The computer picks a random number and the user guesses until they get it right. The minute that I read this, guys, this is in my head how I'm going to start building this. I'm not even going to wire in the CSS. Why? Because it doesn't matter. I am going to wire up my HTML and my JavaScript. The fact that it looks bad is irrelevant. I wanted to get it to work first. Yes? All right, so I'm already thinking, forget the CSS. I'm only going to create a file, HTML, JavaScript. Awesome. Then it's going to say, picks a random number between 1 and 100. That's crap. I'm not doing that. I am going to start with a list with two numbers, 1 and 2. And I'm going to get it to work like that. Yes? Not even random. I'm not going to even write the code for 100 random integers. I'm literally just going to create a list, hard code it, the 1 and 2, and then I'm going to build out the application like that. And then eventually I can add the random logic. Yes? You see that? This is how I'm breaking this problem down. Right? So this is kind of what you need to get good at. So when I look at this, I know what the eventual, this is the end state, right? This is not where we start. All right. So try to get good at like kind of parsing the problem down. All right. So we read one sentence and we already got a lot of information. We're going to create this guess a number game, right? We're going to start with just two files, a button, and then just a hard-coded list of 1 and 2. And we're going to try to guess, is the number 1 or is the number 2? We can do 1, 2, 3, whatever, something small. All right. So this mentions that it does show up twice, but for different reasons. So let's look at the requirements. Wire up the starter files, right? Pick a number. Notice is giving you the code for the random, but that's going to be hard to kind of test. Just instead of creating a function that returns a random number, that function could easily just return a what? What data type? Just a list with two numbers or something, right? This is saying, hey, return one number, so you can just return the number 2 or just 1, right? And out of the possible choices, it can just be 2 numbers. Just limit it as you're building it. It's just going to be way easier. Build a form, add HTML. You put input number. This is getting user input, a button to guess, wire the button with an event listener, right? Handle the guess. Pretty simple. Let's see if we can put it into action very quickly. Let's do it. I am going to. I suppose I could have just created something else, but I'm already deleting this. All right, sweet. I'm literally going to start here. All right. Where do we want to start? We're building this. This is what you're about to do. I'm going to start you off here. Guess a number. HTML, where do we want to start? You can start anywhere.
HTML.
Sure, HTML, exclamation mark. tab. Oh, why didn't that not work?
Wrong
Sorry.
file.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Lately, I've been working on a bunch of Windows VMs, so I'm getting my command save, control save all messed up. So that's what you're seeing a lot of the time here. I'm like working on a lot of VMs right now. All right. Cool. Exclamation mark tab gives me boilerplate. Here, let's do an H1 tag. Guess a number game. Sweet. Awesome. Open with live server. There you go. There you go. Here's my game. Too easy. I'm just going to shrink them. Sweet. Too easy. All righty. Now I know that based on the README, I am going to pull this off to the side. Based on the README, I'm just going to put the README right here. Based on the README, it says we need to grab user input, right? Can we do user input here? That work? Got my user input right there? I can guess 1, 2, whatever. Awesome. What else do I need on my HTML?
Your button.
Yeah, I need a button to check. Give me a button. Check num. Sweet.
And also pass number in the type instead of text.
Yeah, you could. Number. Let's do number like that. Does that work? Yeah. What does that do? Did anybody notice what that does? It gave me a little drop down, right? So it's going to be passed in as an integer as opposed. Oh, I don't think you guys have learned this yet. All user input in the UI like this is passed in as a string, that data type. So keep that in mind. Here, it'll pass it in as a number because you changed the type, right? So here you can just go 1, 2, 3, whatever. And you can also type it, I think. Yep. Yeah, that works. Done. You didn't necessarily have to do that, but if you know that existed, that is a nice to have. All right, sweet. All right, this is it, right? Can we add, we're not going to use this here yet, but we can add, let's add an H2 tag, right? That says your guess was whatever, nothing, right? And I just added this because why don't we just inject into that H2 if the number is right, have it say, hey, it was correct, and it was false. If it was wrong, say it's wrong. We can do that, right? We can inject text into that H2. So I can do something like 1, check number, then maybe this can change to a correct guess or incorrect guess. Yes? Too easy. All right, look at that. We've actually made a bunch of progress and we really just only touched the HTML. That's it. We got everything we need. We got a title. We got where we're going to tell the user if their guess was good or bad. We have an input where we can grab user input, and we have a button to check because we wanted to check when we put, when we click check number. Sweet. And now we have this, we need to connect our, what is it? Is it source? App.js? App.js. And a quick way to check, I could go in here and just console log my connected. Yep. Easy way to check if you did it right. Connected. Sweet. All right. My JavaScript's connected to my HTML. Too easy. I have the GUI where I can check the number. Now, what would be the next thing that I want to write? It could be in any order, but I could write the function. What is this function going to do?
Check the number.
Check number. Let's call it check number. Awesome. Function, check number, and then I'm not going to do it all for you, but I can pseudocode it here, right? We can do, hey, you know how we have a random number? for now, you could literally just do, instead of random number, is like, you can just say, just correct number, const correct number. Correct number. Let's just make correct number 2. Right. So here, take user input. Take user input. Does it match correct number? If it does, say correct and inject correct into done. If not correct, tell them it's incorrect to try again. That's pretty much the gist of it. Then you can add the query selector and everything. That's pretty much the gist of this. And the other one is somewhat similar. Questions about this? I don't want to take it any further because that pretty much does the assignment for you. Questions? All right. The only other thing that I want to leave you with is this. Look at the logic here for check the number. Ultimately here, we just check against, these random numbers, or in this case, when you start off, just a static value. But you could easily, remember how I gave you the assignment with the NASA API, right? You could easily check dynamic data that changes inside the function, right? You can make an API call and check against that, right? So that's a really important thing to remember here. This function can do anything. It can be a regular function and check against static values or static data, but it can also be dynamic and it can cross-check your user information with anything that it can pull from the internet or from an API or from a database or from anything. Does that make sense? That's a really important thing to understand here. This function can do anything. Right here, static, but it can also be dynamic. All right, I'm going to stop sharing right there. Let me just look at the README. Yeah, that's guess a number. Oh, this is broken. I'm just checking your last assignment, make sure it's Pokemon team, make sure it's not. Dude, Pokemon team, I didn't realize it, but it uses the Pokemon API we covered earlier. So you should be well versed in that. Oh yeah, but this is way more involved than what I showed you. Well, there you go. Amazing. All right. Any questions about guess a number or Pokemon team? All right. Sounds good. Remember to include try catches in all of your API calls. How did guess the number go on Pokemon team?
I'm getting there.
Yeah,
Anyone
we're
finish number guesser? Number guesser or Pokemon team that they want to demonstrate or just show their code? Any challenges we encountered that we can discuss? Any questions? Nothing. Okay, that's all right. Let's work backwards a little bit from where we are today and kind of the big ideas of the 7 weeks. Does that sound good? That's kind of how I want to wrap up class today. Okay. So today, in this week, you covered the DOM. You covered HTML, CSS, JavaScript. and we just talked about third-party APIs. Yes? That's what we covered week 7, right? Let's go backwards. Week 6 talks about how efficient your code is. Yes? Remember earlier in class, I gave the example about creating an account on Netflix? And I asked, hey, what data structure? What would we probably create? And the answer is a dictionary because you can access your profile in constant time. It's direct access. If you have the key, you can grab whatever the value is. And the value can be a list, can be a dictionary, it can be whatever. Yes? So that's how big O is important in searching because it deals with just efficiency and ultimately just money and the amount of space and iterations something takes, right? The longer it takes, the more money it's going to cost, right? So that's week 6. Week 5, you talk about composition and inheritance in classes, and that's also week 4. So let's go back to the Netflix example. When you create an account, guess how their code is organized, right? If I was to look at Netflix code base, right, they would be Netflix user class somewhere in there, right? And when someone creates an account, right, it creates an object for that person's information, his email, his password, and a bunch of other information about them, his payment method, right? If he's paid, if his account is logged, it's not, right? Can you use 2 logins or 3, or I don't know how Netflix works now, right? But you can pay for more than one login or something like that. I don't know, right? But all of that is in the same Netflix user object. Yes? All right, so that's how that piece kind of fits into the puzzle. Then before that, we talked about recursion, just a way to solve a problem, and we talked about regex. I gave the example about, creating a password and input validation, right? It's just a regex checks. That's all it is. Anytime you create a password that asks for it has to be at least 15 characters long, has a capital letter and a lowercase letter and a special character. That's just a regex check. That's just input validation. Why? Because we don't want any bad data coming into our application because it makes it act weird and it could break it, right? We go back 1 week to week 2. From there, we just talk about looping and dictionaries and high order functions and how everything in programming is really just a loop and any of the syntactical sugar that you get now. I don't know if you guys have done any research on your async await, but that's also syntactical sugar. The old way was if then, and that's where this idea of a promise came from. If you look at old code, it's going to be if, the keyword if, parentheses, and then a then, right? That's the old way to write an async await function. They're the same thing. Under the hood, they do the same thing, but one of them is just much nicer to write and easier to read. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's week 2. And then week 1 is just Git and GitHub fundamentals and JavaScript and Python review, the 2 languages you're going to use, and then how you're going to collaborate with others. Git and GitHub. Make sense? It's something we don't spend a lot of the time on, but honestly, as a new dev, a lot of heartache comes from that. Because sometimes you get yourself in weird situations where maybe a repo where the code's going to land is not ready. So you're using another repo, and then eventually everything else has to get cloned. I'll give you a good example. I'm actually going to stop the recording here, but I'll give you a good example of something that we had to do at work. I'm going to stop the recording here.